General Vagon has called the Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
Welcome to the Lead Pursuit Podcast, a podcast covering Blood Red Skies, a game of World War II aerial combat.
Well, good evening, everybody. We are just me and Brett here tonight. How you doing, Brett?
Great.
We don't have our fearless leader with us. He is on the way to Reno. Well, anyway, he told us he was on the way to Reno. God knows where Doug's actually going. So you guys were able to get together and work through some of the initial missions. But before that, you told me you've been having a little bit of frustration with the metal models. So what's going on with the Stukas, man?
Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of projects for this Malta campaign, and the one I'm working on now is the Stukas. And I talked about it in a previous episode that I had decided to try out the metal models, not so much because I had any great affinity for metal models, but just so that I could maybe answer the mail and any questions out there about how to handle those. Because at the time, there was some questions on, I think I saw a thread on Ready Room where folks were asking some questions about, how to prep metal models or whatever. So I think, you know what, let me just go ahead and do it. Cause it's been a while since I've done metal models, and then I can, speak intelligently about it. Well, when you don't get what you want, you get experience. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I just spent some frustrating time this evening realizing that had I just purchased some plastic models or some I'm not 100% because I'm fighting this cold, so I'm really struggling to
some resin from AIM.
Yeah, words, they're hard for me right now. Some resin models. I'd be done with this project right now and on to the next thing. So kind of kicking myself a little bit, but yeah. So I have these models mostly painted. I'm working on final details and stuff. And I knew that putting them on a flight stand once they were all painted up and stuff would be a challenge just because of their weight, right? So you have the option of weighting the bases and that kind of thing, or using the extended bases. But I thought I'd be extra clever and just use ball bearings and magnets, somewhat like Doug did on his sabers. He did that with his metal sabers. It worked out real good.
Yeah.
We played with those. It's fine. You just tilt the aircraft on the ball bearing. It's at the top of the flight stand instead of tilting the flight stand for advantage state, and it works out pretty well. So that was my intent. I thought, well, okay, no big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and paint them up, and I'll stick a ball bearing on, and we'll be done with it. So that's kind of where I was tonight. I thought, well, I've got a little bit of time. Let me drill out a little bit of material right where that flight stand hole is, and put a ball bearing in there, and just get that part done and move on. Now, if I was really smart, I would have done this before I painted them, of course, because I know I'm going to be drilling into my already painted models. But I thought, no big deal. Any messes I make there, I'll just clean up, no problem. Well, all of this idea presumes that the spot where that peg goes in the molded model is the center of balance for the aircraft, and it's way off, man. So of course, I drilled out holes in every single one of my aircraft and put the ball bearings in before I realized, I should probably test that, and found that it was way off. Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer. So then I thought, well, I've got this one kind of extra spare, if you will, because I lost the landing gear for it anyway, which is a whole nother pain with the metal models. So I thought, well, let me just drill a new station hole farther back and see how that goes, see how hard that's going to be. Because you can really only go so far back. And, I didn't figure I need to go that far back anyway. But so I'm pretty close to the trailing edge of the wing in the middle of the fuselage. I drill again, and that's too far back. And I barely went that far. But so it just requires a slight adjustment. But I'm so over drilling holes in my aircraft now. I think what I might do is just fill the holes I made with some green stuff and moisten one of those pegs and stick it in there while it's still soft to make the impression of that little triangular, peg.
Yeah.
Let that dry. I'll sand it, shape it up so it's not all bulging out and is relatively smooth on the bottom. I'll probably just prime and paint that little bit of green stuff once it's hardened, and I'll just use the either weighted bases, small bases, or the big bases. And
Yeah.
if I do the weighted bases, I'll have to look at some tutorials on exactly how that's done. I know that comes with its own challenges and stuff, but they're pretty heavy models, so there's tilting them without at the very least one of those larger flight stand bases is just not going to work. So I don't think I want to mess around with the ball bearings anymore. And I would suggest anybody that's going to try that technique with a heavy model for the same reasons, just don't be like me. Do it ahead of time with the test model. I always test paint, but I didn't think to test that part. So lesson
Yeah,
learned.
but you got to be honest. I mean, you would think that the physics would hold that where that peg was originally drilled was the center of balance, but not always so much. I mean, I can see exactly how that could happen. I was messing with the Johnny Red Russian things when they first came out, and I got the Falcon Squadron, and I started trying to get them where I wanted. And I got the first two MiGs built, and I got them painted, and I did a similar thing. I didn't test them on the flight stand. I just assumed that they're going to work on the flight stand. They didn't. The holes are just so freaking loose that the only workaround that I've found with them, other than I bought some resin MIGs to replace them with, but just for the purpose of using those two models that I had already painted, I put a little bit of the masking tape around some of my flight stands up around the top, just to kind of snug that up as a kind of just a field fix for using the models. But to be honest, I knew that the resin ones were coming, so the metals models have anything I own that's metal has been pushed to the back to the quite honestly to the probably will never get used queue. I'm just having so much luck with the AIM resin ones that are coming out, and with the resin models that are coming out from Warlord, that I'm going to be one of those guys that's going to be a fence sitter until it comes out in resin. I'm probably just not going to buy it. I despise the metal that much. I mean, that's not a dig on Warlord. All metal models are that way. I've never been a fan of metal models all the way back to when all models were metal. I just always found them frustrating and difficult to work with. And plastic and resin is just such a superior material to model with. And when your time's limited, like ours is, we're both working guys with, families and careers and stuff like that. It's just you just don't want to lose freaking 10-12 hours working a workaround on something that costs you $25, to be honest.
It's
I'd rather
another
spend
reason.
$25.
It's just another reason to celebrate the coming of the resin stuff. So I'll be
Oh, it
looking
is.
forward to that. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'd be done with this. My 6 aircraft have turned into 5, and I've had to redo portions of it. It's been extra time consuming by itself. Maybe that wouldn't be a big deal, because I still like hobbying and, dinking around with this stuff. But now I'm on a deadline, because March, I need to have kind of a lot of airplanes painted up, what I've committed
Yep.
myself to. And now this is becoming sort of a, it's slowing me down. I'm getting kind of pissed. So I want to get this done and get to the next batch I got to work on. So
Yeah, I mean, I can see exactly how that's frustrating. Like, I went and there was a small typo on the Warlord site a while back, and I got the Pierre Klosterman book based on Andy Chambers' recommendation, The Big Show, and it was a great book. And as soon as I saw it, I knew Klosterman was already an ace for Blood Red Sky, so I went ahead and snapped it up. And without thinking or without checking, I just pulled up the I think they're Spitfire Mark 10s that he flies, and I pulled them up on the Warlord site. And at the time, they said resin models. I think it was a typo, or it's either resin or plastic. It didn't say metal. So as soon as I looked at it, I was like, oh, cool. I guess they were, they probably got those the same time they did the first Spitfire batch without thinking about asking the community, and I made the assumption. I bought them, got them, looked at them, said, no, I'm probably going to give those away to Doug. Let him deal with the frustration of the metal ones. I'll just wait and buy some from AIM freaking to go with the Klosterman card. So,
well,
I mean, I'm just that dead set against them.
When you do your Italian JU-87s, just do yourself a favor. Wait till they're either in resin if they come out, if they're available before you need them.
Yeah.
Or get your ones from AIM and get that done. That should be an easy paint too, because I think the Italian paint schemes for those JU-87Rs are pretty simple. I don't think.
Yeah, they are. They're basically the sand brown Italian color with the white aeronautica stripe. Halfway down the fuselage. Most of the ones I've seen just with the fascist logos on the wings. So they don't have those complicated, green splotchy schemes that a lot of the Macchis ran around with, and some of the 79. So Probably because they got them and painted them quick to get them in service.
What do you think?
But
Do you think I should abandon this metal model project and just start again with some
if I
ideas?
was you, knowing how fast you paint, that's exactly what I do. I would start spending my time. I would kindly put those up on a shelf somewhere. Just me speaking, and just order a batch from AIM and work on something else that you got in your queue.
I've
Just so
got
you
a
don't
couple of
lose time and
110s in my
frustration.
queue I could do right now, and
Yeah.
I can just pitch those at a side and
Well, because
place an order.
I know you're like me. If you end up with an end product that you don't like, even if it looks decent to most people, looks good to most people, you're not gonna play it.
It's
You're
gonna
gonna build
bother
something
me.
else.
Yeah, it's
It's
gonna
gonna
bother
bother
me.
you, and it's exactly what I do. That's why I said, those first 2 MIGs I painted, I love them. I even put some, high speed, found some of the decorative slogans to put down the plane, and I like the way they look, but I was just like, I'm just not gonna play them because they're tippy. I've got to put a big base on them. No, I'm gonna wait till a resin model comes out. I'm gonna get that, and that's what I'm gonna play. So, but that's my thing. It's just I wouldn't have bought Wildcats. I've been working on Wildcats for Guadalcanal already, and I would not have bought Wildcats if there was only metal Wildcats out there on the market. I bought the AIM Wildcats, and I can't be happier. I can't wait till Warlord starts producing everything in resin, to be honest.
It's gonna be great.
So
It
it is.
sucks because I sunk some time into these that could have otherwise been a little farther along, but lesson learned. It's we'll get there. And if once I'm cranking along on resin models, I'll get them all done in time. And I'm gonna take the whole
Yeah.
week of Thanksgiving off, and I'm gonna have the week of Christmas off, and I'll get a lot of hobby time
Yep.
during those
Yeah.
holiday
I'm
weeks.
looking. Yeah, I'm looking at scheduling that time too. I got some other competing projects with school. I got some big photo shoots that I've got coming up next year that I've got to plan from scratch. But I'm gonna make sure I'm just really litigious with my time and figure out exactly, what that schedule's looking like and how to program it out. So speaking of Stukas and the Regio Aeronautica, you guys played some games the other day. You and Doug did. You played some of the Adepticon missions that Doug has scripted out so far. And can you tell me about that? How did it go, man?
Yeah, it was fun. We essentially play tested the first mission of several that we intend to put together for this Malta table, the big showcase for Airstrike and for the Italian stuff at Adepticon. And we should probably talk about that in greater detail, but just what the general vision for that table is and how all that came to be. But at least talk about what uh, we've done just recently, just playing. Because we've been coming up with uh, mission ideas based on historical events in the Battle of Malta between 40 and 42. We've come up with several scenarios. And the great thing about it, we've talked about this in previous episodes. When you think about what happened in Malta, not only do you have some great air battles, but there's lots of opportunities to exercise the rule sets and stuff for airstrike with ground attacks, bombing runs and stuff like that. So that's what we did. The very first mission is probably the most introductory one. In fact, let me back up a little bit. What we did, just just to kind of familiarize ourselves with how we believe the airstrike rules work, we each we played a single game where I had aircraft, and he exercised just the flak and the light flak and the heavy flak barrages
Yeah, so
because
you guys did kind of like a crawl, walk, run.
yeah, kind of like a mission zero, whatever, just for
Yeah,
airstrike, so that wasn't like an added complicated, you know, condition of the game. So, and it was kind of interesting because we learned a lot of stuff. It's kind of neat little things like how your fighter planes can dive under the big flak barrage because they're not affected when they're disadvantaged, and of course they climb back up once they get past it and stuff. Whereas your laden aircraft can't do that; they just have to suck it up and fly right through the box barrage. So it's
yeah,
pretty neat. Um, the barrages weren't terribly dangerous or anything, but they took a slight toll. Uh, it was interesting too. Once we actually played a full game, I think we played probably a couple of full games where he flew uh, RAF aircraft, and I continued to fly the Axis stuff. And he moved. He learned better how to position the barrage and work that stuff. And he was flying Gladiators, which have their own kind of tricky abilities. He had tight turn cards, plus the biplane mechanic allows them an extra turn at the beginning of their move. So they were pretty nimble, and they were hard to tail. And I think what damage he may have suffered probably came mostly from the turret weapons on my bombers. I had difficulty really uh, much to them with my fighter aircraft, and but it
Was
was
it
fun.
just trying to get into position, or?
And there's some of that because this guy's turn. I'm thinking expecting where they're going to be, so that I can set up a position. But then they have a couple extra turns, and was made it tough. Now, if I think kind of like in jets, if they were close enough to me, close enough to my fighter aircraft, they couldn't climb for advantage. So if I could knock them down, I could keep them down. But getting a tailing
Yeah.
solution on them was often pretty challenging.
Yeah. So, and what was Doug playing again?
Playing gladiators.
Oh, they're just the gladiators. Yeah, got it.
That was,
Okay,
it's just like that first scenario. It represents some of the first strikes on Malta, where it was just the Italians versus a very small complement of really outdated aircraft for the RAF there on Malta. And
I'd have given anything to see Doug flying a biplane. Just knowing his feelings.
I like to try to trigger him. I think I sent him a picture today of some beautiful artwork of gladiators over Malta. Just he didn't respond, but I like to try to just push his buttons on those. But,
it's funny, what the world is triggered by and what Doug is triggered by, and definitely it's for some reason it's biplanes. It just triggers the hell out of him.
Right. But it was a pretty good thing because testing that mission. So it's a pretty basic mission. It's very similar to one of the basic missions in the in the airstrike book. Modified to really what's modified about it is the specified elements representing certain the specific units that were involved, and of course the specified aircraft being the SM-79s and the C-200s on the Axis side, and then the Gladiators on the RAF side. And then the deployment stuff was very specified because it's supposed to reflect, all of a sudden, here come these bombers at very high altitude, and these slow climbing gladiators have to, get off the ground and get up to altitude to try to do something about it. And when you read accounts of those early war, they would have some early warning because of radar and stuff, but they would have to fly to the south, climb to the south so that they could turn around and try to interdict bombers as they'd actually, release their bombs and were departing.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting. So Doug's really good with all the game mechanics. As everybody knows who listens to the show, he's our game mechanics guru, and he's put a lot of thought. So I did a lot of the research on, where these aircraft were, what kind of things they were doing, and when. And then he translates that into game mechanics that reflect that, but are also workable in the game. And real clever stuff with the deployment, the specified deployment, things you have to do to sort of reflect that. And then also where the targets are based on, what kind of targets we're actually being hit during this time frame. So there's a couple of airfields and stuff. And playing it out helped us realize some adjustments that needed to be made, and it made it even more fun. Things that you can't, I don't think, appreciate or really come to expect until you actually move models on the table. Like, oh, you know what, we need to line these targets up, and they need to be 18 inches apart, versus they were spread laterally, or it doesn't, not a very good visual for podcasting, but by virtue of playing the game a couple of times, he was able to make some minor tweaks to what was already a very good and well thought out mission plan. And I think it's going to just make it all the better. So the idea is that eventually we'll have several scenarios like that reflect notable air battles during the course of the campaign. And you get to, try out some, I guess I call it, kind of baby bird, right? We're gonna baby bird you the information. So if you really want to play this campaign as close to matching what we've uncovered through research with a BRS rule set, you're gonna have mission 1, mission 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's gonna kind of walk you through that and tell you, okay, field these aircraft and field them like this with this deployment, put these targets on the ground, and it ought to be a pretty good time. This very first mission certainly was, and they only get more exciting and interesting and more varied as you go.
Yeah. Did you guys have any of the Pico terrain painted up yet to play with?
Have any painted up, but we did bring some, and we put those on the table, and we really well scaled for what we intend to do.
Yeah,
So,
like I said, I was thinking about getting a 3D printer, and Doug sent me a big pile of Pico terrain, in that package with the rulers that he sent up, and it was kind of like I started looking at the cost benefit analysis of owning a resin printer and everything that comes with it, and I was like, nah, just gonna hit pause on that this year. I just don't have time to one, invest the time, two, to recoup the investment out of what I'm actually going to make with it. It's just not going to happen. So I'm definitely going to go to the Pico. I love the little Pico factories in the bridge, and I can't wait to see some of the other stuff because from what I was looking at, just holding it in my hands, I was like, this stuff is just perfect. If
I'm not
you
sure
had a
where
bunch of this stuff painted, miscellaneous, factories and bridges, and so I'm looking down the road and just doing little tank sets and stuff like that. I think it'll be perfect.
Oh yeah, Doug brought down a bunch of the Pico terrain, the metal terrain, like we've discussed in a previous episode. But he also brought a whole bunch of acrylic stuff. I presume from Litco, but part of that were these clear, like probably 40 millimeter discs. They might have been a little bigger, but they were just
Yeah.
clear discs. And he glued some. Well, we may not have glued them on because they weren't painted, but he put some of the Pico armor on top of that clear disc as if it, how we'd imagine once painted it would be attached to that clear disc. And it was perfect. It was, maybe it was somewhere probably between 40 and 60 millimeter in diameter. And
Yeah.
for an airfield, there were the little hangars and the little buildings and stuff that reflected the airfield. I suppose on the disc itself, you could maybe even, sketch on a little, runway, pattern, but
Yeah.
that represented an airfield. And I think he had some other look like fuel tanks or something, big fuel storage buildings or
Yeah, he sent
whatever.
me a couple of those.
Yeah,
So
and so
the
we
big the
used
big
those.
vertical tanks, the Jet A tanks or whatever you call them, jet fuel tanks.
Yeah, and then he had some other things he was trying out just to see, make game wise what would really kind of make sense to reflect what was happening. And he had some, I believe they were from Litco, these different like damage markers, little explosions, little fiery explosions, and they were in
Yeah.
different sizes. So you could tell the difference between. We decided, the smaller ones were point hits, and the bigger ones were area hits, and you know, depending on how many of those were placed on the target, you could get a sense for how much damage had been done, and that was
Yeah.
necessary. That helped reflect too, like how much flak was active, because I guess some of that stuff comes away once you start receiving those hits. So that
Yeah.
was cool. And it kind of looked
Yeah.
neat too. It was because you actually have this sort of 3D, although it was colored red, colored
Yeah, I've got some of
plastic.
those, the smoke and fire markers from Litco, and
Yeah.
now that you mentioned that, I'm like sitting here thinking, yeah, that's perfect.
We're like one step up from chits, but they were kind of
Yeah.
cool because they were little visual representations of what was happening as the target took damage and stuff. So that was neat.
I mean, we
He
use
had
them in 40K and 30K, and they're perfect, to indicate, somewhere something's happened. You got a vehicle on fire, you get this little fire that sits on top of it. It's perfect. So, and they're a little bit under scale actually for 28 mil gaming. So I can imagine for Blood Red Skies for ground targets are perfect.
we've been talking a little bit about you kind of what to do in the game to represent the loss of flak and stuff. And we were talking about maybe you would add chits or take chits away, but some of these targets might have a lot of flak. That representing flak guns that are individually lost as they take point hits and stuff.
Yeah.
And the idea I think he came up with, it might be the best working solution, is have numbered chits that say, light flak 1 through 6, and same thing with heavy flak, and you just change the chit out for the appropriate number as the flak takes losses.
Oh yeah, that would be sweet.
I think he's looking into having Litco or somebody like that, maybe Just Lasered, actually make him some custom, or at least price out what it would cost to have several sets of those made, because that would probably be pretty handy and just a nice visual marker.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody could just use numbered, a die on
Yeah.
top of the target to reflect that too. Maybe use different colored dice to reflect, one's heavy flak and one's light flak. But it's just kind of cool. I've always find that kind of stuff pretty neat. All the little gadgets you can pick up and stuff to make your table look good.
Dude, the first thing I did when I got on Blood Red Skies was start buying gaming aids from Letco, just from activated markers with, the hammers and sickles and Luftwaffe crosses and you name it. There's just so much stuff out there. The other thing I found is there's a lot of stuff that's made for other Warlord systems, like the dice that are made by Warlord for their bolt action. They're they're just different looking, but those dice work just as well for Blood Red Skies because they just got a symbol and a 6. So if you're not a big fan of the Blood Red Skies dice that are out there, check out some of the other Warlord dice. I mean, they're perfect. So, but there's all kinds of markers out there for the other game systems that work for this too. So it's gonna be neat seeing what we can repurpose or what we can design ourselves. And I know Doug's just like me and you. We walk around with tackle boxes full of gaming aids for 30K. We're gonna do the same thing for Blood Red Skies. So
Yeah,
it just makes it more fun to keep track of.
he even had some they look like little explosion markers, but they were splashes of water to reflect splash barrages. We didn't play any, yeah, we didn't play any games over water or any, attacks on ships or anything. But that's going to be a part of the scenario pack. There's going to be missions in there that include stuff like that. So he brought all that stuff down just to show me and everything. But I was like, dang man, he had quite an assortment of different little things like that that could look good on the table.
Yeah. So I noticed some chatter between you two. I've been so busy with school that I've only been like answerly around the chat and around the email. But you guys have found it looks like somebody that's designing a custom Malta map for you.
Oh
What's
yeah,
going on there?
we've talked about tiny wargaming or tiny war games
Yep.
before because I think at least a couple of the mats I have. One of my ocean mats is from them. I think my that
That
Dover
that World
coastline
War
mat or
One
whatever.
kind of looking. Yeah. I
That
thought
one's
it was
from
a World War One. This has got all the trench lines and everything on it.
that one's actually from Deep Cut Studios. But
Okay.
two
Yeah.
of my mats are from Tiny War Games, and they have a Malta mat. Actually, they have at least one Malta mat that you can go on and buy right now.
Yeah.
That's but it's just Grand Harbor.
Yep.
And it's the
I've seen that one.
scales. Yeah, the scale's probably a little off if you want to play anything bigger than that. It's it's kind of zoomed in kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Probably more than you see probably in most. I mean, it's usable for Blood Red Skies, but of course you're only going to see Grand Harbor, right? Um,
Yep.
so on their website though, they had some, like a gallery of custom mats and stuff, and they show in one of their pictures. It's not something you can click on and add to your cart, but there is a picture in their gallery of some guys playing on a mat that looks like it's certainly Malta, but it's a much uh, much more zoomed out scale. So it includes more than
Yeah.
just Valletta Harbor or Valletta and Grand Harbor, but it's got maybe part of Lucca is in there. Anyway, these other points of interest. So we know it can be done, and of course they advertise on their website that, hey, look, give us whatever you want, we can make it. And we can make it any material, any size. Just tell us what you want. And in their gallery for things like that, they show everything from, you know, maps, Civil War era maps put onto a mat to, you know, satellite imagery, right? So kind of everything
Yeah.
in between. So I just emailed them, it says, hey, contact us here, contact our artist directly with your idea. So I simply said, hey, look, we would really like to have a 4x8 mat. And I thought of you because you
Yep.
were saying it'd be nice to have a much larger mat. So kind of
Yep.
a bit of a compromise instead of 8x12,
Two 4x6. Yeah.
yeah, a 4x8. If you at the scale we want to do it in, 4x8 actually gets you a really pretty awesome
Yeah, it
chunk
does. It gets you
of
a lot of
Malta.
mat.
It
Yeah.
gets you
Six
everything.
by 6x12 is probably, or 6x8 is probably a little bit big.
Yeah, and it might
And
be hard
plus,
to
it would be
reach across
difficult to
in
work. Yeah,
places.
it'd be difficult to work across,
Yeah. But I think
especially
four
for
by
those,
eight
those
we
of
can
us that are
get
hot
to.
and challenged with like short limbs.
Right. Yeah, and 4x8's you could reach all the table. And if you're only doing 4x6 or 4x4, you just let part of the mat hang off the edge of the table. No big deal. But if you orient, what we found is at the scale we want to do, and at 4x8, you can rotate the map onto that rectangle in a way that you capture everything from Grand Harbor all the way down to the southern coast, like where there was like a seaplane base and a couple of
Yep.
airfields that are noteworthy for the campaign. are all captured. Kind of the main corridor of bombing activity is all right there. So we sent that, and really what we sent was just a
Like a Google Earth image is what it looked like.
yeah, it was like a screenshot of Google
Yeah.
Maps really, and
Yep.
just to show, look, here's the dimensions we're looking at, here's the orientation we're looking at, what can you do? And Ivan's the artist. He shot us an email right back saying, yeah, I can do it. This is what it's going to cost for the artwork. And this is what he's got to really do. He shot back aerial imagery, modern day satellite imagery or aerial photograph imagery from Google Earth or whatever. And he already has artwork because the other mats he's done that cover portions of
Yeah.
that layout. But then there's portions that are 21st century image. It's so he's got to rework all that manually, I
Yep.
guess, to make it look like 20th century Malta.
Yep.
And he found on his own several aerial photographs from the war of what within would have been Luftwaffe targets, or Axis targets anyway, and also an old late 19th century map of the same area. So his idea is that he can combine, these images in a way as reference to make what would otherwise be a modern image of Malta look like it did in 1940, right? So pretty exciting. I also sent him some additional reference material today. I found some aerial reconnaissance photos from the Axis in that time frame of how far airfield, and a reference drawing from the time that just kind of showed where different RAF units were based and where they dispersed their aircraft and stuff. So that'll, I think, help our artist understand, where these different points of interest are in relation to everything else on that same map sheet. So we'll see. I think I don't. It says give them a little bit of time to do this work, so I don't know what to expect. We have plenty of time though, because we're months away still. But I'm really kind of excited about the process.
What was he ballparking you guys at?
A couple $100 probably just for the artwork. So it's going to be an expensive mat. I expect the mat itself is probably going to be, $100. I mean, you look at any of their mats that they produce in mouse pad material that are 4x6, they run right around, I think between 80 and $100. So
yeah, but once the artwork's in the can, this is something that down the road other people they can put up on the website, and other people are going to be able to order the same thing that they wanted or probably portions thereof and not pay the artwork fee.
That's right. We're benefiting to some degree from the fact that artwork's already been done, at least in portions of the map we're asking for. So that's helping us out.
Yeah, because I was wondering about this whole process too, because I know that the guys at Deep Cuts will print just about anything you can send them. So I'm going to start a little bit of a dialogue with them too, because down the road I really want a Guadalcanal map, and I just want Savo Island. That'll cover the northern slot coming into there. It'll cover Tulagi and the Florida Islands up north, and just that northern northwest portion of Guadalcanal, all where Henderson Field was all the way over to Lunga Point, and you'd end up with a map that was probably covered 60%, maybe 55% with water, maybe actually a little bit more than that, and then some land things. So I was pulling up, just Google Earth imagery of what that area looks like today, and of course it's completely built up. But I've got some Photoshop skills, so I was pulling into Photoshop and saying, okay, let me just take this town away here. Let me clone stamp out these villages, these little settlements here, and I was seeing definitely how we could possibly go down that route. But of course, I don't know, starting with how that would work, starting with a Google image, and do you owe Google any rights and that kind of stuff. So I definitely need to talk to the guys at Deep Cuts about what they will print, what they won't print. But there's some possibilities there. But if this turns out really well, we may just go down the route as a podcast maybe in the future of saying, you could even Kickstarter this thing. Who wants a Multimat? This is what it's going to cost us to put this thing together. Or who wants a Midway map? Midway is the ocean, but one little island. But you know what I'm saying? These other campaigns we could do down the road that have substantial pieces of turf on them, and say, who wants this? Are you interested in it? If you are, just run a small, teeny tiny Kickstarter that just basically covers the art cost, and then the only thing you're putting in is the cost of getting one map printed, and $10 extra, and then we could spread this out over a lot of people. And we're not going to be able to pull that off for Malta, but it's definitely something we can do in the future.
It would be pretty cool if when this is all done, and if enough people see what we've done with Malta at Adepticon and maybe future things, and of course hearing us talk about it and stuff, that they're inspired enough to paint the aircraft, read about the actions in Malta, and maybe that mat will be available for them, and it won't be as big a hassle because it's already done. But that's cool. Maybe we should probably talk a little bit about what the vision is for our Malta table and maybe others for Adepticon, because I know we've kind of beat around the
Yeah.
bush a little bit about what what we're doing, but we've not. I don't know that we've talked with any specifics about how we came up with the idea and what we're thinking about
Yeah.
doing all together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to do several Malta tables. I mean, that's in the offing. They may not be all covered with a Malta specific mat, but we're going to definitely have several Malta scenarios. But I know that we've also been talking, Midway's coming out that time frame, or will be just about to be released. So there's definitely going to be some Pacific stuff that we're going to bring. But the Pacific, honestly, you roll out a C mat and maybe put a couple islands on it, call it good. But I know Warlord is going to be releasing the Stalingrad stuff, that time frame, and they'd have asked me personally, John Russell has, to make sure that we've got at least one good Russian mat there. Not that we're helping Warlord push the product, but are doing tie-ins for them specifically. But we just want to make sure that where Warlord is as a company, because they've been so supportive of us, we're gonna do the opposite. With our event, we're gonna script it so that if Stalingrad's a hot thing for bolt action, that we'll definitely, while Malta is our focus, we'll definitely have some Russian wargaming there. I think between me and you, we could probably field probably a Stalingrad map tonight if you showed up at my house and you wanted to play any airplanes. I know I could. Out of the Russians I have, and I've got a couple Luftwaffe squadrons that are Eastern Front squadrons. We could already get that together. But I think that's definitely the route we're going to go. Of course, we're not completely boxed in yet, but the big thing we're waiting on is hear from the community. So I know we got listeners out there. I know we've got people that are active online chat. So just get out there, shake the branches, and start telling me, who is coming and what do you want to see, and are you interested in, getting together? Are you interested in making Adepticon a big thing? And as big as you guys are going to want us to build it, we're willing to build it, guys. So just show us that you're going to be there, and we can get something put together.
Talked to John some months ago when we first decided it was something we wanted to try to do, just to see what his reaction would be if it was something they wanted us to do, or because it was all just something the three of us had been talking about.
Yep.
So I talked to him and said, look, here's kind of what we're thinking, that we could have several tables, maybe 5 tables, and each table is uniquely showcasing a specific, maybe new release or newish release for what's going on with Blood Red Skies. And so, Malta was kind of key to that, because we're talking about the airstrike drop. But then
Yep.
also knowing that, Midway was on the horizon, we're saying, maybe we could do a Midway table. Now with Stalingrad, maybe we could do a Stalingrad table. We could do also a galley table. And at each of those tables, people who either signed up ahead of time or just happen to show up, if they happen to stumble around like we did last year and find out that there's this thing called Blood Red Skies, and if they want to come around and have some pizza, they can get a demo game. From something as simple as that, like some guys who know nothing about Blood Red Skies and want a demo game, all the way up to folks who know a great deal about Blood Red Skies and just want to see something maybe a little more interesting, could walk up and see an awesomely laid out table and all the aircraft for that particular table painted, and so you could just play with, you could show up without anything and still play.
Yep.
And as best we can. And, of course we got a lot of work to do with Malta, but to be able to play with the aircraft on that table that are actually accurate to, reflect the aircraft they're actually in that campaign. So that's kind of exciting. I mean, that's my excitement is it necessary for me to paint 12, 18 more ME 109s, different variants? I have Battle of Britain 109s that we could certainly put in there. They're 109s, but I'd like to be able to place aircraft on a table that accurately reflect the ones that were there.
Yeah.
And we may be able to pull that off for the other tables as well. Malta's the big.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to pull it off for Stalingrad. And to be honest, I think if we do a Pacific mat, I think that's completely in the realm of the doable. By then, I've already got Corsairs painted. I'll have my batch of Wildcats, which is everything's done except the canopies will be done. I've got a batch of Hellcats. Of course, we don't have a card for that, but that hasn't stopped us ever. We could always do a Hellcat card. I've got 2 squadrons of Zeeks painted. I know you've got a squadron of Zeeks, and I'm planning on investing here in the next 2 months. Other than getting some Italians for the Malta campaign, I'm also going to be getting. I just have this. I really want to do some float planes and figure out some ideas for float plane missions. So I'm definitely going to get a PBY. I'm going to get a roof. I may even get a Jap Emily. So get some different float planes, and then I've got to do some Bettys. So and that's definitely in the cards. I've already got the decals for the Bettys and the PBYs waiting, and of course the roofs are just converting some Zeke decals.
Just
But
kicking that float plane idea around with Doug. If there was a way to work that into a smaller scenario, or even if it would, instead of being maybe a separate scenario, if there was a way to make float planes somehow a buff, an in-game buff or something. I'm just spitballing because I don't, but he's our rules guy who could chew on that and actually make it something that's makes sense. But I was suggesting something like, if you lose an aircraft or something, but you can get a float plane to a specific point on the map in time, then maybe that plane's not lost after all, or maybe you get you go away a boom chit that you otherwise would have
yeah,
had on your squad or
I
something, something like
yeah
that.
yeah I think float planes will be a really interesting element when you're looking down the road, doing some games that kind of caveat off of each other and build in a scenario like we're eventually looking to go, where things that happen this turn affect the next game. And it could be things like the float plane that gets across the board the next time you play. Okay, so now your area, now your location's known, and these guys are going to get reinforcements faster than they would have if you had shot that float plane down. I think those would be interesting mechanics from a campaign perspective to add in there.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. I think it'd be
so
neat to have them flying around on the table where there's other action going on too, versus it being like a the recce mission where it's just single recce
yep,
aircraft being chased down by some fighters or whatever. I I imagine when I think about it, especially for Midway, because both sides had those, and that was an important thing that was going on after the battle. Um,
yep,
if somehow there was a mechanic that allowed you to have some advantage, or where there was some payoff by using it, but that silly float plane could show up and fly across the board in some manner while all this other stuff is going on, and maybe as a defender or something like that, you have to make a decision like, do I peel off a couple of planes and go shoot down that thing, or do I stay in this
yeah.
fight? Or who knows? I mean, I'm not the right guy, game mechanics wise, to ferret all that out. But I just visually, I think it'd be super cool because, like you, I like those models. I think it'd be just kind of extra fun to have something like that show up.
Yeah, anything that's interesting on the board. I mean, I want to eventually build it, get it out there, and figure out a way game mechanic wise to make it fun to play, just to be interesting. And we could all sit there and throw Zeeks and Wildcats at each other for freaking every game we play of Midway, but that's going to get boring after a while. At some point, you're going to want to integrate in those other things that were going on to demonstrate that. So now that we got, airstrike, we've got submarines, we've got surface targets, we've got all kinds of other mechanics that we can work in. And then when you start putting float planes and stuff like that in there, it just gets more layered and more interesting.
Every scenario we've mentioned so far, with the exception of maybe Stalingrad, there's some legitimacy to probably some float plane stuff. I mean, you think about Battle of Britain, even
Yep.
Korea. I mean, with the not the RB-29s, but the the rescue B-29s that had
Yep.
that like lifeboat that they could jettison.
Yep.
To maybe the Russian side of it wouldn't be a float plane, but it'd be like shooting down strafing the downed pilot so that nobody could find out
Yeah.
he was Russian.
Yeah. Well, speaking about Midway, and I think that's where we'll wrap it tonight. Is just wanted to do a little bit of talking about Midway, the movie. I know you're planning on seeing it this weekend, possibly, and I did see it this week. I went into it thinking, huge eye roll, and I posted a review which Doug was kind enough to edit for me. Guys, I'm a Marine. I'm in college for a reason. Um, so if you want to pick apart my spelling, my grammar, have at it. Enjoy yourself. But after about 3 drinks last night, I just seen way too many reviews online from way too many people that were basically slamming it as a piece of garbage. And does the movie have flaws? Yes, the movie has flaws, but I don't think there's anybody out there in the military community that's going to find any war movie out there and they're not going to find flaws in it. But the one thing I did want to say, and I stressed in the review, is if you're not going to go see it because of what other people are saying, you're kind of cheating yourself here. Um, Midway was an amazing battle, and the way it's portrayed in there, yeah, there's a lot of CGI. Yeah, there's a big, huge helping of Hollywood cheese put on top of it. But the one thing I wanted to say about it is from a purely historical perspective, the guys, whoever wrote the script, I don't know if it was the director himself, the screenwriters working directly, or if they had some people behind that were doing the historical stuff. But the fact of the matter is, as a guy who just read Shattered Sword a couple last month, I could tell that whoever wrote the script for this movie did not watch the 1970s Midway, and they actually did this thing called reading a book, um, because they corrected a lot of those historical inaccuracies that were in the original Midway movie from the 70s, and also that have existed in numerous tomes that have been written on Midway. So, when they attacked the Akagi, I think it had 3 or 4 planes on deck, which is what we believe actually happened, and it wasn't chocker blocked with airplanes. They even covered the downed U.S. aviators getting picked up by a Japanese destroyer and their unfortunate demise. Um, it covered things that you just didn't see before. The big problem with the movie, and this is, I think, a problem for people who don't listen to this podcast. If you listen to this podcast, you're probably a fan of aviation in general. You probably understand what happened between 1940 and 1942. So going from Pearl Harbor to the Doolittle Raid, through Marshall Islands, Coral Sea, all the way up to the Midway campaign. If somebody's moving you around that rather quickly, you know exactly what's going on. But I will say that the movie's runtime really impacted it. I think Coral Sea was seeing the Lexington smoking. That was all the screen time that Coral Sea got on, other than a couple lines of dialogue between some people. So is it the perfect movie? No, it's not. But is it a damn fun ride? Oh my God, it's a damn fun ride. And I'm telling you, take your son. It's a clean movie. There's not a lot of language. It's just a lot of guns. It's kind of written in that 1960s war film kind of the genre, which really fits it. And I can tell you, Woody Harrelson and Quaid, dude, their portrayals of Nimitz and Halsey were just, for me personally, were spot on. And there's some performances in the movie of secondary characters. The two main American aviators, two British actors that are pretty good actors, but they were really over the top of the movie. That almost made it a little bit painful to watch at times. But the other guys that were playing the secondary characters, they just did an awesome job. The intel officer, the code breaking officer, all of those guys, it was really well put together. So don't cheat yourself. Definitely go see it. And I'm looking forward to hearing your review when you go, Brett.
That's cool. I told Sean today I wanted to go see that this weekend. One of the theaters near us is playing it in 4DX, where the seats move and you get
Oh God, that'd
sprayed
be
with
fun.
water and air and stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's and Sean's probably going to really enjoy it. Christina loved it. Christina absolutely loved it. She's a pretty tough critic on films that are crap, and Christina just kind of looked at me and said, "Hey, that was World War II, and it was a fun ride. Don't care if it had some flaws. It was a good time." So definitely don't just listen to the critics. Don't by all means don't listen to Flickster and Rotten Tomatoes. Go make the opinion for yourself. If you're not going to see it, at least see it when it comes out on Blu-ray. Because if you're a fan of World War II aviation, you're going to get a kick out of the movie. You just can't watch the fuel lines and the hangar deck on the Akagi go and blow that carrier the way they chose to blow the carrier in this movie without just going, wow, that's pretty damn cool. Yeah, it's CGI. Yeah, I know it's not real. Yeah, it's not perfect, but man, it looked good. It was really impressive. And I can tell you that the Pearl Harbor scenes in it are surprise, surprise, way better than the Ben Hufleck film Pearl Harbor, which was a god awful movie.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that I tried to get to go see it earlier, I think last weekend or weekend before last, but I think Gavin was a little. He's like, "Yeah." I showed him a trailer, and I thought he'd be all for it, but yeah, I'm gonna.
Well, the good thing is Gavin, he will not. the movie doesn't stop once it starts. There's a little bit of setup, like there is with any movie. But once you get into fighting scenes, you kind of go from it's like bam, the Doolittle raid, bam, a Marshall Island raid, bam, freaking Coral Sea, bam, Midway. I mean, and the Pearl Harbor scene to begin the movie is pretty impressive. I mean, you get to see the sinking of the the Arizona. So it's a pretty well done flick. I mean, yeah, there were some big flaws. Zeros don't fly, below the palm trees while they're strafing staff cars on Pearl Harbor. That just doesn't happen. And yeah, that stuff shouldn't be in there, but it's Hollywood. They're going to do what they do. I've been telling everybody that I've been really barfing watching the commercial, watching the SPD do the tail slide. But when I watch the movie, he's trying to escape into the clouds, and he does the tail slide to fall back into the clouds. So it would somebody ever done that in real life? But probably not. But is it plausible and out trying to outrun an aircraft and climb into a cloud? Yeah, it's plausible. It's Hollywood, but it's still plausible. It was done well, and it's really good. So give it a try. Tell us on the website what you think. Tell me if you hate my review. Tell me if you think I'm full of crap. But I'm definitely telling you, if you haven't read Shattered Sword before Midway comes out, treat yourself. That is a book you need to sit down and you need to get through, because it is everything you want to know about Midway, soup to nuts, what really happened there. So, but anyway, man, it's about 9:50, and I think we're gonna pull the plug on it. You got anything else?
That's it. Get yourself some resin Stukas.
You heard that first from Brett, the model junkie. Just go ahead and get you some resin Stukas. So, John Russell, if you're out there, I know you're listening. Get the guys turning and burn on getting some freaking metal Stuka, or getting some resin Stukas cranked out quick. So we're all in for Warlord resin, but we're all getting kind of frustrated with some of the metal models. So we need to clean that out of the inventory. But that's all we got tonight. Brett, thanks for coming on. I think we put together a pretty good episode in our illustrious leader's absence. But you take care of yourself, and let me know what you think of the movie when you get back, man.
I will do.
Alrighty, out of here, guys. You guys have a good one.